All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and today's show going to look a little bit different until I get back to normal since I tore my bicep off my bone this weekend, but here I am until I get surgery at the end of the week. We begin tonight with this breaking bombshell. GOP Senator Ron Johnson releasing text showing Dr. Anthony Fauci was discussing concerns about COVID mRNA vaccines and pregnant women at a time when Americans were being told to trust the science and, they were safe and effective. We're going to have much more on this with Ron Johnson, the senator himself, in just a bit. Plus, the Senate is technically still in session, just not actually doing anything, so actually no change there. They're holding brief pro forma sessions with no legislative business. The only reason they do this is to stop Trump from making recess appointments. Still no Save America Act, by the way. And looks like we've got a new Attorney General. Todd Blanche has officially been sworn in, giving him more power than an acting Attorney General as the nation's top law enforcement officer after the Senate confirmed him 50-49 Friday night. Let's see what he does with it. But first, nothing is more enjoyable than watching the social justice monster eat itself. And on the menu tonight, the WNBA. Let's do this. How does an organization, the WNBA, that was founded because women needed their own league because they couldn't compete against men, now contemplating allowing men to play in the league to compete against women? Right. They're literally debating what the W in WNBA actually stands for. And one of the top voices in the WNBA, the league commissioner, says, it's a complicated issue, writing in a memo. So she actually wrote this down. We recognize that this is a complex and nuanced topic, and we will continue to have important conversations with all of you and the Players Association within the weeks and months ahead. It's not complicated, but the league had one of its owners ejected and fined because she was harassing young children who were supporting one of only two people that matter in that league because she was like, hey, I don't want to play against men.
It's disappointing, though, too, because she's also a woman, and she just kind of cussed out two 16-year-olds that were just trying to have fun. We weren't trying to be political, we were just trying to support Sophie. But
the only reason they're making it complicated and wanting to have a larger conversation, as they're saying, is because now former NBA players, Enes Kanter and Royce White, have declared that they're women and they'll just be in the draft next year, which, by the way, it's hilarious, okay? Now, the WNBA rules only say, as you can see right here, you have to be a woman. And the left has declared that gender is whatever you feel you are.
Can you define a woman?
I just did. When they tell me they're a woman, then they're a woman.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
A woman is a person who says she is.
So here we are. This is the ultimate culmination. We've seen men absolutely dominate women's sports because the definition, the actual definition, is chromosomal and hormonal. That's literally the definition between a man and a woman. How much more evidence do we need to show that it's not going to be fair ever? Leah Thomas broke every norm. He broke records in women's swimming after not even being in like the top 400 or 500 in men's college swimming. Here, you want to know what the gender gap is? Look at that right there. That's the gender gap. That's the difference between biological men and females. About 50% off the starting block, give or take. CC Tefler, track and field, USA, competed on the men's team at Franklin Pierce University, was unimpressive, I guess the word would be. After transitioning, he won the 2019 NCAA Division II National Championship. Laurel Hubbard, weightlifting, this piece right here, competed as a male earlier in his career, transgenderized, and pow, woman. Won multiple championships, World Masters game title, silver medal at the 2017 World Championship. Fallon Fox, MMA fighter, transitioned after fathering a child as a male, then proceeded to break a woman's face. And the left celebrated this like it was some sort of great social victory. This is what happened in volleyball, too, by the way. Veronica Ivy, cycling, transitioned, won World Masters track cycling championships after that. These are all mediocre men that went on to completely dominate women's sports. And if the left still thinks gender is just like some fluid construct and not a hard biological difference, where are all the women who transitioned to men winning things? No? Think about the progression of what's going on here. In the 60s and 70s, women, feminists, and female athletes, they fought hard for women's sports because they needed their own space. They passed a bunch of laws and initiatives, including Title IX, giving women their own sports, their own leagues and spaces, only for the same exact liberal movement to now be protesting that those women's sports leagues are not inclusive enough for men pretending to be women. This is the social justice monster just eating itself.
The truth is trans women are women, and so if they would like to play women's sports, then that would be something that they should do as women.
And when she was asked who decides who a woman is, that was her face for like a solid 6 seconds in the video. She didn't want to answer that. I mean, there it is. Who gets to define what a woman was? These people originally did. This is the problem with the land of make-believe. When your fantasy rules contradict what your intention was because the entire thing is ridiculous, it all sucks. Make no mistake. Look, I don't really care about the WNBA. I can hear the feminist who got us here in the first one. Oh, you don't care about women's rights. No, that's not what I said. I do care about women's rights. I just am sitting back here, grabbing popcorn and laughing at the drama that you people created. I like Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark because they stand for something and because they're actually pretty good at basketball, but mostly because they were the first people in the league to call out the crazy. I don't like the rest of the league because you have people like this. Look at this. That would be a foul right here. Blah, clothesline. That would be a foul in like a men's prison league. Clearly a foul, and she knew what she was doing. And saying the offending player called it white privilege that she was ejected for assaulting Sophie Cunningham and the race car too. White privilege looks a lot like getting beat up by, I guess, 6'6" black lesbians, but I'm not sure that's the textbook definition they were going for. Ironically, also, why has no one ever heard of the woman culturally appropriating white people with her blonde hair? I thought we weren't doing that anymore. While Sophie's jersey, by the way, is selling out. Nobody else is selling jerseys except for that woman. Maybe Caitlin Clark. And the two players that seemingly everyone else in the WNBA hates, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, are pretty much the only people the rest of the sports world gives a darn about. But what's crazy is Sophie's own coach, instead of defending her, defended the woman who fouled her.
You know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul. But I also don't think that she intentionally went for the net.
Look at Sophie Cunningham on the right. She's just like, get me out of this table. Get me out of this press. Let me give you a reality check to the Angel Reese's or whatever her name is. And this woman with what looks to be a blonde wig. Relax. You're not special. You wouldn't even play a 15-year-old boys team. Your league has been subsidized to the tune of almost $50 million a year by the NBA, and then proceeded to wear T-shirts that said, pay us what you owe us. Well, from a business standpoint, you're actually worth zero. Actually, you're worth negative because you bring in no revenue. This is the modern liberal movement on full display. You have women's rights, women empowerment, super diverse. I mean, most of the teams are made up of black women. You've got female coaches, and every feminist movement, it's like everything they dreamed up, all the DEI people, and they stuck it in the stadium. And what's the result? Nobody watches. They still didn't deliver, and the reason they didn't deliver is because they're like they're feminist and the pink hat brigade out protesting for all those women's rights to abort their babies and stuff. Those people who say they care so much, they don't even show up to watch the games because they don't actually support the women they protest for. Women's rights is a great buzzword, but the very women protesting for it don't even show up enough to make the league profitable. Former NFL sideline reporter, Minnesota Senate candidate whose primary is tomorrow, Michele Tafoya, and former NBA player Chris Dudley. Like, Chris, I mean, it is almost comical to watch at this point.
Well, it's unfortunate because I'm a believer in the product. I think the women's game has gotten so much better. So I'm a season ticket holder of the Portland Fire. I believe in the game. But the sideshow and talking about it seems like we're talking about everything but what's on the what's happening on the floor. And I think the WNBA will be much better off when they're actually talking about the games itself, because it is a good product. And I saw the Portland played the Fever last week, and it was great basketball.
So I think you're actually advocating for, I don't know, just sports and people playing them. I think that's where we're at. Michele, but this is Sophie Cunningham's response to Giovanni Carrington saying white privilege after she clotheslined her. I think the league is taking care of that. This has nothing to do with race. Last year I did the same thing and I got kicked out, and I deserve to be kicked out. There's no reason even to play that card. Why did she go to the race card?
I don't know, but I think this has to do with your social justice monster that you've been describing here. You know, recently the Indiana Fever played here in my hometown in Minneapolis against the Lynx, and we stood outside to support Sophie Cunningham, a bunch of us. And we were shouted down by this opposition group who, you know, said that trans women are real women and they should play in the WNBA. Look, one of the protesters on my side of the argument happened to be Black. And the opposite side, the side that was all about the trans women, came over to her, singled her out and said, you should be on our side. Why are you basically betraying your race? So this is a social justice animal. I don't understand it, except that we in America have sadly cultivated a victim, you know, sort of a victimhood Olympics. Sure. And a victim, you know, this whole idea of victimhood is something that makes you different and unique. And it's sabotaged this game.
Oh, no, totally. It's totally. I mean, Chris, Royce White, though, the second former NBA player, now he's declaring for the WNBA draft. Look, I think there's a chance that he puts this thing back. I mean, he says, I'm pro-life, sometimes identify as a Black woman. Why can't people on the left be more supportive? He's basically using all the terms. And I think this actually may be the only way to restore just the game to the game and get all the other garbage out.
Yeah, and it may be. I mean, I don't know his particular situation, and I saw Freedom Cantor did as the same. And I think if nothing else, it's going to force the issue being addressed, and really, like the Olympics has done, and force the issue to. You have to have some guidelines. Otherwise, this is going to continue, and it's going to continue to be a distraction. And they need to be able to figure that out and move on.
Yeah, well, Michele, your primary is tomorrow, and you're running against Royce White. He's not going to be able to be a senator if he's drafted to the, the women's WNBA.
You know, maybe he can juggle two careers. I think we're all capable of doing a little of that. But seriously, and Enes Kanter Freedom is a friend of mine who did this the other day first. And I do think, as Chris said, it's a really interesting way to back the league into a corner of saying, okay, so wait a minute. We said inclusion is everything. We can't exclude. We said, you know, women who identify as women or men who identify as women are women because they say they are. Right. So now these two guys, former NBA, first round draft picks, say, guess what? I now am a woman. And now they have to deal with this. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be a lot of spin, a lot of word salads. We're going to hear a lot of stuff come out of the league, and it's sad because I covered the first few years with Reggie Miller. We covered the WNBA. I was one of the three women who did play-by-play along with Hannah Storm and Robin Roberts, and it was a celebration of these great female athletes who had just come off a gold medal win in the Olympics, and now it's like we're gaining momentum. Let's market this, and it started to, and then you get the goose, the golden goose and Caitlin. And just sabotage. Well, it's astonishing.
Yeah, Chris, I remember like back in the day when women's soccer came out, I was like, I'd rather watch the women's soccer team because they don't flop around on the ground and cry like little girls when they have a minor foul or something like that. So I was like a loyal viewer of the women's soccer team. And then they started coming out with like all this agenda stuff. Yeah. I think that's like the death of any sport.
Well, it's with sports bring people together. And I went to the opening night in Portland and with my daughter who played in college. And it was literally, she started to have a tear, get emotional that, Dad, I never thought I'd see the Moda Center where the Blazers play sold out for the women's game. This is incredible. And it was an incredible environment. And you want to be able to be in sports should be bringing everyone together and celebrating that. And it's one of the few things as well as entertainment that does have that purpose, and WNBA has to be very careful not to divide, do the exact opposite, and that's what's happening here. And it's something that's it's unfortunate, as you said, you don't want to lose this moment for women's sports. This is really a great opportunity, and what the league has been able to do. And they're going to have to address it with salaries getting higher, with the opportunities, the exposure. Yeah. These may not be the last two who are biological male, who file to play in the WNBA.
Yeah,
they're going to have to address the issue, just like the Olympics did.
100%.
There's a woman in France who is dominating the women's leagues in France.
Yeah.
She may be next.
Yeah, exactly. He. Well, Michele, Chris, we appreciate both of you. Michele.
Well, good luck, Michele.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope you guys get out and vote tomorrow in your state.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, American ranchers living out their dream in Nevada only to have the U.S. Navy, my people, tell them that they're actually taking part of their land and lowballing them so they can drop bombs on it. We got that coming up with the ranchers. But first, major breaking news today. Fauci's text released what he was saying in private about the COVID vax, that it could be deadly, especially for fetuses, different than he was saying public, obviously. Remember, safe and effective. The man behind releasing those text messages, Senator Ron Johnson, next.
People can't stop talking about Rob Schmidt.
I trust the news from Rob Schmidt every single day.
They say he's no BS.
No BS. No liberal crap.
He hates liars.
The honesty and up-to-date news and none of the fake news.
He tells it better than anyone.
Everything is straight, legit, real news.
He's your voice.
Rob Schmidt, 7 p.m. Wouldn't miss it.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
I love Newsmax.
It's 2 a.m. Your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories at Ancestry.
Senators Rand Paul and Ron Johnson released some text messages from Anthony Fauci, and it appears that as early as January 2021, they knew that there could possibly be complications with pregnant women and miscarriages tied to the COVID vaccine. Yet the Biden administration health officials, they didn't change their rhetoric. Your reaction?
Well, the Biden administration was a disaster in every way. That would be just one way, but they have been a disaster in every single way.
Well, breaking news today, Senator Ron Johnson releasing text messages from Anthony Fauci's government-issued phone, where in January 2021, Fauci texted former CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and former Surgeon General Vivek Murthy that the second dose of the COVID shot could be associated with miscarriages in the first trimester. The man who released these text messages says his investigation is just beginning. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, sir, my only question is how many more things did he know that were bad or negative while he was telling us they were safe and effective?
My guess is an awful lot. Remember, Carl, I issued a report on April 29th of this year that showed that Peter Marks, who's head of the FDA division that approves vaccines and surveils for safety, was warned on March 1st, 2021, that their algorithm that they used to analyze viruses was going to hide safety signals. 26 days later, you had senior FDA officials shown, using a new algorithm, dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, with which Anthony Fauci suffered from in June of 2021, Bell's palsy, different kinds of strokes, and they hid it. They're denying it to this day. So no, this is a bombshell. We've got 34,000 texts to go through. I thought we better release this one right away because it impacts public health today. It impacts informed consent as more pregnant women may line up now for the mRNA flu vaccine that's been approved. But I think that's been approved only for people over 50 years old, so that shouldn't impact pregnant women.
Senator, I mean, I realize these vaccine manufacturers have significant immunity. Like, it's almost impossible to go after them for anything. But this is willful, like, negligence here. Like, is there any mechanism, or could you guys pass a law that would allow people to sue? Because I actually know people personally that had miscarriages after these COVID shots.
Yeah, Carl, we heard of women experiencing, heavy menstrual flows to the point where they need transfusion. What I consider little girls all of a sudden menstruating that, years before when they should have. So again, this was obvious. I mean, those of us paying attention knew this, but it was covered up by big pharma. It was covered up by the legacy media. It was covered up by federal health agencies and by the medical establishment, quite honestly. So this is a major scandal. Not one major news network or newspapers covered my April 29th report about what Peter Marks knew. And here's another little detail. Tom Shimbakuro, in June of 2021, wrote a grossly misleading paper that the New England Journal of Medicine published, talking about a study of 827 confirmed pregnancies. Now, just follow me on the numbers.
Yeah.
Of that, 104 experienced what they call spontaneous abortions, miscarriages. That's before 20 weeks. They claimed that represented a 12.6% miscarriage rate because they used the 827 as the denominator. The problem with that is 700 of those 827 pregnant women got their shot in the third trimester.
Yeah.
So the proper denominator should have been 127. 104 divided by 127 is an 82% miscarriage rate. And New England Journal of Medicine didn't retract that study.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, not safe and effective. But also, we know now that people in these trials were excluded from the trials sometimes for having an adverse reaction. And it's like, at some point, there has to be something you guys can do in Congress. Like, we can expose this all day long, but you still have people that have been gravely injured. Their lives have been turned upside down with miscarriages or a variety of other health things, from Bell's palsy to whatever. I mean, is there any liability for the average person right now?
Well, I think my Republican colleagues are starting to open up their eyes. Not all of them, and somewhat slowly. But if you watch Democrats perform in the hearing with Fauci, that they were still proclaiming him as Saint Fauci and saying the hearing was just a travesty. This honorable public servant here that's given us all, that lied bold-faced to the American public on a host of issues. So listen, all I can do as a member of Congress is uncover the truth, expose it, and understand, Carl, my investigation has just begun. We could not get documents out of the Biden administration for 4 years, even though I wrote something like 70 oversight letters. We got squat. Finally, Bobby Kennedy got in there. And to great resistance within the agency. Well, these same people are still in place. They're sabotaging his effort. Finally, we got a document dump of 11 million pages. That's not easy to go through. We finally got his devices. We only got his phone last week. And so we download those in a searchable file. Again, we want to do this in a thoughtful way. I don't want to release personal information of others, and even Fauci. I want to release relevant information as quickly as we possibly can. But here's the problem. There are only 3 contacts in his contact list. All these 34,000 texts, most of them just had a telephone number associated with it, which anybody who texts realizes you don't do it that way. As soon as you have somebody text you, you set up a contact so you know who that is. They obviously deleted those contacts. I don't know what else they might have deleted from these devices. But again, quick little search found what I consider another major scandal.
Yeah, this is a major scandal. Well, Senator Ron Johnson, I appreciate it. We'll have you back on to figure out more of this and if we can see Fauci's public trial. All right, thanks, sir.
Thanks for covering this.
All right, coming up, a land grab in the name of national security. The government wants their land, and apparently they get to decide what it's worth, too. That sounds super not capitalist. Sure, that's going to go over real well. The Nevada ranchers fighting back against this. Join me live next.
A new president is sworn in. America's greatness is restored. Millions of Americans are tuning in to Newsmax. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific. Watch Newsmax or download our free app on your TV or phone today.
If you find yourself stopping more and more to catch your breath, you could be experiencing what we call temporary oxygen insufficiency. Give yourself a boost with Boost Oxygen. A few deep breaths of Boost Oxygen is all you need to help combat the negative effects of what we call temporary oxygen insufficiency.
Now I live life on my terms. With Boost Oxygen, I am unstoppable.
Get all-natural 5-star respiratory support with Boost Oxygen at these fine retailers.
There's a power within each of us. When awakened, it can boost performance, enhance learning, even help you work smarter. And you can unlock it with one simple thing: better sleep. Sattva provides that with our luxury mattresses, handcrafted with premium materials in our American factories. We even deliver to any room in your home for free. Sattva, you deserve the comfort of a great night's sleep.
Ridge is back with our 6th annual sweepstakes. With prizes so epic, we needed a spokesperson to match.
These are pretty nice. You can win a Lamborghini, souped-up trucks, or $100,000 cash.
Enter to win for free at ridge.
Wait, free?
Yeah.
Car trouble never gives you a heads up. It just happens. And with today's repair costs skyrocketing, getting caught off guard can burn through all your money. That's why having My Auto Guard coverage matters. Without coverage, auto repairs cost Americans an average of $6,000 to $7,000. And let's face it, it's not if you'll need repairs, it's when. A My Auto Guard auto protection plan covers any make or model: car, truck, SUV, even electric vehicles, saving you thousands.
My Auto Guard paid my mechanic $4,800 to fix the engine. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Just call now or go to myautogard.com. One transmission job could cost over $6,000. A new engine could cost over $7,000. But you won't have to pay that when you're protected with My Auto Guard. Now more than ever, you can't afford to be driving without My Auto Guard. Because with My Auto Guard, you don't pay for costly repairs on your car, truck, or SUV. My Auto Guard pays. You can put that money back in your pocket. You even choose the repair shop or dealership. Then My Auto Guard pays them directly, so you don't wait to be reimbursed. Remember, you must get My Auto Guard before a repair is needed.
My Auto Guard paid for my brake repair fast. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Call the number on your screen right now for a free quote. There's no obligation to find out how low your monthly payments can be. My Auto Guard customer service reps, coverage specialists, and claims adjusters are all under one roof right here in America to ensure you always get top quality service from a caring company that stands behind everything they do. Call My Auto Guard now and let them pay for your auto repairs. Act now and get free 24/7 roadside assistance, help with oil changes and tire rotation, plus rental car options to get you back on the road. So don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-218-2031. That's 1-800-218-2031 or visit myautogard.com right now.
When you hear national security, it's pretty hard to argue with that, right? But what happens when the government says national security requires taking away your family's land and the price they offer doesn't even come close to what it's actually worth? Do you take it or do you let them eminent domain it for basically nothing? Well, that's what Nevada ranchers Adrienne and Justin Snow say that they're facing as the Navy expands its Fallon bombing range involving more than 769,000 acres. Folks, I drop bombs at this range. It's huge. They don't need to expand it. They've offered the Snow family $1.48 million for losses projected over the next 100 years. But the USDA's own formula values their forage alone at $815,000 every year. It's not every 100 years. The Navy claims its process is lawful and accounts for the family's losses, blah, blah, blah. But these ranchers just say the math ain't mathin', and I agree. Nevada ranchers at the center of this land grab, Adrienne and Justin Snow. This, to me, Adrienne, is insane that it's an insulting amount of money that they're going to offer you.
It is. We've tried to negotiate with the Navy. We've hired countless experts to bring information to the table, including congressional acts like the Agricultural Risk Protection Act of 2000 that established that USDA valuation system for forage. And not one dime of what we have countered with has been included, and the Navy has stood firm on where they're at.
I mean, that's crazy. Like, Justin, I have a farm too. If someone came to take any of that, I would probably meet them at the gate, armed. I mean, this land has been in your family for a long time. They're saying that they need to drop bombs on it. Like, here's $1. The heck with your kid's future.
Absolutely. We are. I'm a 5th-generation rancher, and the amount of money they want us to take that money and invest it for 100 years to get our return, and that's going to take 2 generations of ranching out. There won't be any ranches left for the Snow kids at that 100-year mark. So it's unacceptable. They're breaking us as ranchers right now.
No, and it's a huge machine. You know, obviously, Adrienne, you talked about some of the things in the through the 90s that were put in place to protect you. But in 1934, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Taylor Grazing Act, which states that when the military when their use prevents grazing, permit holders should receive fair and reasonable payments for the losses suffered. That's not even taking land. That's limiting their grazing. They want to take you. Have they said why they need this?
Basically, it's just that they need to expand the base for training. We do have a pretty special base that we do value in our community, which is referred to as Fallon NAS Top Gun. So we're not fighting against the U.S. government needing to take this for whatever reason. If the government says they really need it, we're not going to question the why. The only thing that we are truly fighting back on is that we have built our entire lives around this allotment that we purchased. The government didn't give this to us, and that seems to be a really big misconception. We purchased this, and we have a mortgage on this. So we are continuing to pay for it, even though we've already lost use of it, despite the fact that in a Senate Armed Forces Committee hearing, our U.S. Senator Jackie Rosen questioned former Secretary Phelan in that hearing about our offer, specifically referencing how low it was and that it needed to be rectified. And instead of that being rectified, we received a letter stating that their final offer was going to be equal to their initial offer, and that was going to be it. So Secretary Burgum is also well aware. Justin had a meeting with him April 1st with the governor of the state of Nevada, in which a directive was given that he wanted this handled and handled correctly. And yet here we sit.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, the problem here is, why don't they just, like, would you settle if they were to say, hey, we'll buy you a new ranch of equal size? Would that be enough, or you're like, no, this is my land?
Well, I understand we're pro-military, and if they need this ranch, that's fine. They just need to make us whole. That's either by compensation or buying us another ranch to continue feeding. I mean, what we do is feed the American public at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, look, I was a SEAL. I went to JTAC school in Fallon, Nevada. I've dropped bombs on that range. It's huge. They don't need more. Trust me. I've been there. But look, guys, I wish you the best, and I'm going to, make whatever phone calls I can after this to see if I can help you out. But stay in touch, and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Coming up, more promises from far-left Dems that come with a sneaky price tag. We're breaking that down. Just how much Mamdani's socialist-free agenda actually costs you, the middle class. Next.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.
We wanted transparency, but we couldn't find it. So we started Good Ranchers to reconnect the American family to the American farm. All of our meat is 100% born, raised, and harvested right here on American soil. But good sourcing is just the beginning. We go the extra mile to take stuff off your plate. Pre-trimmed cuts, easy thaw bags, fully cooked options.
Ooh, yeah, this is good.
And it's good for you. No antibiotics, no added hormones, no seed oils, no gluten, no funny business.
This is a bottlenose dolphin, and this is the breakthrough nutrient doctors discovered that helped some dolphins age healthier than others. It's called C15, and the more they had in their diet, the healthier they aged. Now, over 100 peer-reviewed studies later, Fatty 15 is bringing this discovery out of the ocean into everyday life to give your cells the same age-related benefits as all those happy, healthy dolphins. Fatty 15, healthy aging for all.
Free yourself from prying eyes. Ask privately with Duck.ai. Visit Duck.ai to chat privately with ChatGPT, Claude, and other AIs for free, all in one place. Duck.ai is from DuckDuckGo, where AI is private and optional.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
I'm an advocate for student well-being. When it comes to understanding mental health, we've made great strides. But young people today are experiencing an unprecedented mental health and well-being challenge. The reasons are complex. Maybe it's academic pressure, or economic stress, or social isolation, or something else. As students, we're trying our best. So are our parents. But if we are going to improve youth mental health, we need a comprehensive approach that looks at all our sources of stress and is informed by us, the students. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
When Saturday rolls around, I don't want to jump through hoops to watch college football. Good thing DirecTV makes it easy to keep up with my favorite college teams. No hopping between apps or channels.
Stream college football without the hurdles on DirecTV.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
The Democratic Socialist agenda is finally saying the quiet part out loud. They want to put more taxes on the middle class.
There's an opportunity here, I think, to trade what we give to a big corporation who gets to decide who we get to see and who we don't for a little bit more paid into FICA. And I think that's a trade that's worth making.
This guy denies he's a Democratic Socialist, but he is endorsed by them, and he hangs around with them, and he sure sounds like them. And what's even worse, he doubled down when he was questioned on it.
You are effectively acknowledging that people making less than $1 million could see their taxes go up. I just want to be very clear. Is that a yes?
I'm saying that we'd be paying for health care in a different way. Instead of paying a health insurance company whose CEO makes $20 million, I would much rather pay for durable health care into a government, which, of course, we all know provides health care for seniors who need health care the most. So if I'm trading paying a CEO to make more money or paying government to guarantee me health care, I'm picking the latter every time.
The CEOs get paid that much because they do it better than the VA does. Just a reminder, our founding fathers dumped like a ton of tea in the harbor over a 2.5% tax hike in a breakfast beverage. Matt Kibbe, the president of Free the People. Sir, this is just straight up stupid.
It's straight up stupid, and I feel like we've tried this again and again. And it's important to point out that the FICA tax is the payroll tax, and the payroll tax arguably is a tax on workers. It's wildly regressive. So on the one hand, he wants to go after billionaires and millionaires, but what he's really talking about is taxing anybody that collects a paycheck. And that is wildly aggressive. And it's also an empty promise, like socialized medicine, particularly socialized health insurance, Medicare for all, as they say. They do this in Canada.
Yeah.
And what it leads to is very long lines. And the most popular program in the Canadian healthcare system is euthanasia.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you have a knee problem. Have you considered suicide? The biggest socialist scammer of them all, though, New York City Mayor Mamdani. He's got this free agenda. Free childcare that's actually going to cost now double what he said it was going to cost. Free buses, That's $1.1 billion a year. City-run grocery stores, $70 million. This money has to come from somewhere. They already had to steal $4 billion from the state budget to, quote, balance the budget because they have a balanced budget amendment in New York.
You know, Margaret Thatcher said it best. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
Facts.
And in the short run, the governor of New York, who's afraid of the Democratic Socialists, is throwing him a bone and some money for a pilot project for the first 2 years of his free daycare. But they're chasing anybody that makes money out of the city and out of the state.
Right.
And it's going to be an empty promise, just like the rest of them.
So ridiculous. Speaking of Mamdani, though, a state judge literally just temporarily blocked the rollout of his pied-a-terre tax, or whatever the thing was, where he doxed everybody. The ruling implements a temporary restraining order, pausing enforcement while a homeowner lawsuit moves forward on this. So his little plan to tax the rich just got put on hold by a liberal court in New York.
It's, you know, a lot of this is rhetoric, right? It gets him elected and it sounds good for people that are suffering a real affordability crisis. But in the end of the day, there's only so much you can tax the rich because they're quite savvy and they'll leave the city, they'll leave the state. They already have since 2020, and it's going to make things worse, not better.
Yeah, no, 100%. And out in Utah, too, this is the problem I have with property taxes, which is once you're in it, they can just do whatever they want. And Eagle Mountain City in Utah, that city council just voted to approve 183% property tax credit, or property tax. The problem is they're going around saying, well, it could have been a lot. It was supposed to be 220. We lowered it for you guys. It's still twice as much.
It's insane. And if we're talking about affordability, if you want to buy your first condo, if you want to buy your first house, young people are feeling quite anxious about that. So we're going to tax them more. But once you pay off your house, you don't really. And I think property taxes are really insidious in a horrible way to undermine home ownership at a time when we should be rewarding it.
Yeah, one day I want to break down and actually go through with a lawyer. Like, if I have property taxes on a second home, is that taxation without representation? I don't know. What do you think, sir?
I think taxation is theft when it comes to my home.
Man, brother from another mother. I appreciate it. Matt Kibbe, see you soon.
Thank you, sir.
All right, coming up, another Democrat refusing to endorse one of their own socialist candidates. Weird. Who knew that they had standards at all on stupid? We got that in our Culture Clash next.
My friends, I come to you today on behalf of the Jewish people in Ukraine whose lives have been completely destroyed. Family and loved ones brutally killed. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is inside of Ukraine, providing emergency food and supplies to tens of thousands of people.
I am shocked how many elderly people came here. They're afraid, and they realize now that there are more people than boxes.
For just $25, you can help rush an emergency food box to the elderly Jews in Ukraine. Many of them are hungry, frightened, and alone. Today, there's a special opportunity to double your gift's impact. Call now, and your gift's impact will be doubled.
The people of Ukraine are caught in the crosshairs of war. Many of these precious people are Holocaust survivors, elderly Jews who are sick and dying. They have no food, and we must reach them now before it's too late.
The world is in a war again. I am alone. I'm afraid of the bombs. I'm scared. I am old. There is no food.
Just $25 helps rush emergency food to elderly Jews in Ukraine who are in urgent need today. Please call, scan, or go online right now.
I will not starve. Thank you, good people.
We can be the hope to the Jewish people who are suffering in Ukraine. Your help is desperately needed now.
Thanks to generous fellowship partners. Call now and your gift's impact will be doubled.
You know, when I came in here, I was at a 15, and that's no joke. My spinal cord was almost severed. I feel like I'm gaining my freedom. My pain level of the day is nothing.
No pain now? No. Okay, feels good? Yep.
And I can feel my legs waking up and getting feeling back in my leg and my foot I haven't had in a year and a half, 2 years. I feel like I'm getting my life back.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
I have a wife and 4 kids. If anything ever happens to me, I want them taken care of. That's why I have life insurance. Ethos. 10 minutes, 100% online. Done.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Why go on Roe? Because 1 in 4 guys experience ED. Guys, connect with a provider to find treatment that could be right for you, like fast-acting dissolvables or daily gummies. If 1 in 4 guys deal with ED, then 1 in 4 guys should go on Roe.
Folks, normally this is my time to just rant about something, but we had so much news today that I have something really good that I'm going to share for you tomorrow in this block. But for tonight, we're going to put our culture clash here. Another diehard Democrat refusing to endorse Democrat socialist candidate. Last week, it was Bernie Sanders, who hasn't followed the race closely, according to him. Okay, for Francesca Hung running for Wisconsin governor. Okay, this week, his socialism-loving bestie, AOC, also declined to endorse her.
You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House.
What do you make of those controversial statements I'm sure you've seen? How do you get around that?
Yeah.
I mean, those are not positions that are supported by...
Right. I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Just the greatest thinker of our lifetime. Even stupid has standards. Daily Caller senior politics reporter Ashley Brasfield and CEO of Compass Strategies, Luke Ball. Luke, I mean, speaking of stupid, I mean, just when you think the acronyms, by the way, for the alphabet community that are supported by people like AOC can't get any worse, here's a new one.
These liberal lesbians actually are on our way to drop that daughter off at Sleepaway Camp, at Camp Highlight, which is a camp for children of LGBTQ parents or children who identify as LGBTQ.
LGBTQ.
They said it with a straight face, too. At this point, they're just smashing letters together. I'm surprised they've not added anything onto it. In my opinion, the plus is probably discriminating against somebody. If they aren't a part of the entire alphabet soup acronym there, then does that mean they're being discriminated against by being lumped into the plus section? It just is a never-ending stream of ridiculousness. And I am glad that we have social media where we can now get clips like that to just put on public display how horrific it is.
Yeah, and every month they add a new stripe to the the LGBTQ flag or whatever. All right, if this doesn't sum up the liberal soft on crime policies, Ashley, I honestly don't know what was. The Charlotte, North Carolina, a woman rammed a cop with her car. She got a $3,000 bond, leaves jail, gets indicted again for assault with a deadly weapon, still no jail. Same woman rams a second man with her car 3 weeks later, $10,000 bond, and we just found out that the charges were dismissed, walks free.
Yeah, Carl, you left out my favorite quote from AOC where she goes, woke one was crazy. Well, this is part of woke one is crazy. And I feel like we're in phase 2 at this point with crime like this happening. And you've seen a lot of this actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a video been circulating online about a man just going up to a woman and punching her in the face. And he had a long rap sheet of records of doing, basically the same thing, recording social media posts and then posting it on social media publicly for people to see. Now you have a woman doing this. So crime is continuing to run rampant in Democrat-run cities. Typically under Democrat-run policies. And so that's where we are. Woke one. Really crazy, AOC.
Say it ain't so. I mean, that's the woman right there with the massive nose jewelry. All right, another corrupt judicial system. Remember when the Madison Brooks case happened where she was raped and then left on the dark side of the road for a busy 4-lane highway in Louisiana and then fatally struck by a car? Okay, so reports, Luke, the judge presiding over Madison Brooks's case, Judge Gail Ray, who we just showed you, is the mother of a convicted serial rapist. Now, he pled guilty back in '97 to 3 counts of forcible rape, 5 counts of aggravated. Look, justice can't be blind in this. There's got to be a bias built in. I think the judge should decline, no?
I think that she should decline, and I think there needs to be an investigation to some degree. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but even I know that if there is something in the past like that, it would probably taint any potential verdict or outcome, and it needs to be fully investigated.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with that. All right, this report, Ashley, is actually insane. I'm looking at this and I'm like, it makes me want to take organ donor off my driver's license. This report says that there were some patients listed as organ donors that showed signs of life as the organ harvesting process began. Some even signaling, making hand signals because they could hear but couldn't respond.
Yeah, I think there's a perception that's been had towards the public that being an organ donor is a really good thing. But then you see reports like this and you get advice from medical professionals of, signs of life from people that are, donors of organs at the same time. So I think it's put this perception, why would I do that going to the DMV? It seems like a simple choice and the obvious choice at some points. But then you hear these stories and I think it's obvious that no one wants to be an organ donor after this. And when you're hearing this from medical professionals and, nurses that have seen this happen, I think that it becomes even more of a concern for just the general public in general.
But Luke, it just seems so transactional. I mean, you can pair this up with abortion. I mean, it's like life is just so transactional for some of these people.
Yeah, and if it's happening, then it's murder. And any company affiliated with it, any hospital affiliated, as you pointed out, Carl, should receive the entire full weight of the law upon it. Because if you are killing someone in the womb, it is murder. If you were killing somebody on the operating table, it is also murder. And if this is somehow becoming profit for these companies, or somehow the people who are harvesting the organs are profiting themselves, then that is just a radical situation for a medical professional to be in the United States.
No, it really is. I mean, our hospitals are already having their own problems. So this is just like, I guess, stack this onto the top of those. So whatever. Luke Ball, Ashley Brasfield, pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, a Marquette University poll just asked the American people who is covering the stories you care about most. And it turns out you're not actually wasting your time here. On the hot issues impacting the Supreme Court, like birthright citizenship and transgenders in the women's sports, as we just talked about in my open tonight, Newsmax was among the leaders in cable news. We beat Fox, we beat CNN, we smoked all the other people. As for who was covering the Supreme Court, 48% of Newsmax viewers said we did just behind MS Now. I don't even know how they don't put out any information on there. Only 36% of Fox viewers said that they were well covered on the Supreme Court news. Newsmax led all media in covering trans athletes and women's sports, with 63% saying that we covered it a lot. Fox only got 50% of the viewers, despite the fact that they have a bunch of contributors that own clothing lines now. And on the big issue on birthright citizenship, 58% of our viewers said that we covered it a lot. Only 46% of Fox said their network did. The bottom line, look, folks, we are doing our best to cover the stories that you care about. So keep the emails and texts and tweets or whatever they're called coming. We are trying to listen to you, and we want to cover the things that mean something to you. Read more about this on Newsmax.com. Download the Newsmax app in the App Store. Over 10 million Americans have actually downloaded this already. You should too. Before we go, our greatest assets are our neighbors. And this weekend, I showed my son the importance of community. Got that next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Hi, I'm Sally with sellmypolicy.com, the fast concierge service here to help you sell your life insurance policy for cash now. Our experienced team makes it fast and easy for you to get your offer. Use the money however you want. John sold his policy for $590,000 in cash for healthcare. And Cheryl sold her policy for $90,000 in cash and used it to supplement her retirement income. If you are over 65 with a life insurance policy of $100,000 of coverage up to $50 million of coverage, then you may qualify. With Sell My Policy, some people choose to sell all or just part of their policy so they can access cash now while also keeping coverage in place for their loved ones. Plus, you'll get paid fast. Trusted by seniors, there's no obligation to sell. Find out what your policy is worth today.
It's fast and free with Sell My Policy.
Talk with a policy expert now to see how much cash you could receive. Call 800-910-2274 or visit sellmypolicy.com.
As a kid, I was desperate for the $300 pairs of sunglasses that I saw all the athletes in my life wear. But it was just not realistic for me to spend that kind of money on sunglasses, something that I would probably lose or break. And that was the genesis for starting Shady Rays. High-quality, polarized, performance sunglasses with lost and broken protection. If you'd like to try a pair completely risk-free, see why millions have switched to Shady Rays, at shadyrays.com and shop our full collection.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Adaptive sports as a whole are great. Golf is excellent for guys because, you're outdoors. You can't beat it. On July 6, 2011, I was injured in Afghanistan 4 months after I was hit. Someone from the Marines approached me and said, hey, there's this organization that wants to build you a smart home. And I was like, sure. Tunnel to Towers, they're always there to support you no matter what. They're actually helping us out with some home renovations because I'm definitely a different person now than I was 12 years ago. Donate now at t2t.org.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Ridge is back with our 6th annual sweepstakes. With prizes so epic, we needed a spokesperson to match.
These are pretty nice. You can win a Lamborghini, souped up trucks, or $100,000 cash.
Enter to win for free at ridge.com.
Wait, free?
Yeah.
Well, as you saw, I was out Friday. I began preparing for a weekend project at my farm, helping my neighbor build a barn. Now, when you hear about barn building, most people automatically think of the Amish, like getting together, working together, and those guys are great at it. But until like the last century or so, community barn building was like generally the norm among all American communities. Imagine that. Americans just got together to help a neighbor, no questions asked, no quid pro quo, just doing the right thing for a friend in need, and it was reciprocated for anybody in the community that needed one. Projects like this are not only good for the community, but they teach kids, like my kids, valuable lessons, like my son drilling right there. My son and his neighbor's son, they were out there the whole time, like 12 hours a day, learning the value of woodworking and hard work and actually building something that you need as a family. We spent 2 days, we cut the trees down, we milled all the wood, and we put together this structure that's gonna be used for, I think, hopefully 100 years if I built it right. This communal bond is kind of gone. If we get it back, we'd be a whole lot better off. I mean, how many people don't even know their neighbor in this country? And as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, it did not come without a little bit of pain. I told you, which is why I'm sitting down now, I ripped my bicep right off my bone tendon or whatever it is. I'll be getting surgery at the end of the week. But I mean, like, it was totally worth it, Rob.
I mean, what you can do out there is incredible.
It's fun.
I'm sorry about your left bicep.
At least it's my
tore
left
it off of the bone.
Yeah, that's why it's been resting on the table the whole time.
What are the chances that right now I could beat you up?
Still zero. I'm still carrying a gun.
Still zero. Even without the gun, probably still zero. Carl, heal up. Heal up, my man.
I got you.
It's a good-looking barn anyways.
Yeah, man.
All right, good to see you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.